Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Collision Vision driven by Auto Body News. As always, I'm your host, Cole Strandberg. My guest today is one you've met here on the Collision Vision before, Frank Terlep, a well-known and highly successful entrepreneur within the collision repair space and currently Vice President of ADAS Solutions for Opus IVS. Frank is also chairman of the Collision Industry Conference, or CIC, which had a great day-long meeting at SEMA just a few short weeks ago out in Las Vegas. Today, Frank and I will talk all about CIC and some highlights there, as well as some highlights from SEMA 2023 as a whole. Enjoy the show.
Cole Strandberg is a principal with Focus Investment Banking. All opinions expressed by Cole and podcast guests do not reflect the views or opinions of Focus or Auto Body News. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Podcast guests may have ongoing client relations with Focus Investment Banking or Auto Body News. Enjoy the show.
Frank Terlep, thank you so much for coming back to join us here on the Collision Vision.
I am absolutely glad to be back. Thank you for inviting me again.
Excited for a great conversation. And when we talk about kind of wrapping up SEMA 2023, who better to do it with than one Frank Terlep? Looking forward to kind of diving into that, given your experience and reputation within the technology side of the automotive industry. Want to get some highlights from SEMA on the whole, but first, would love to run through the great CIC event that you and your team put on. Talk about some of the highlights there. How'd it go?
Well, first of all, remember, this is the 40th anniversary of CIC. So it was a big 40th anniversary event, number one. Number two is we had the most registrations ever for a CIC meeting. So I'm pretty excited about that. Think about it. So in Palm Springs in January, we had the most, and now 3 meetings later or 4 meetings later in Las Vegas, we've had more than that. So great attendance. Great committees. Again, without the committees, CIC doesn't exist. So great committees. And then we also combined the Red Carpet Awards in the evening after the CIC reception. And that was well attended and everybody seemed to like that. So it was great. It was absolutely great.
Awesome, man. Very good. A big part of CIC, of course, the red carpets were phenomenal. Really great event put on and highlighted a lot of folks doing some really good things for the industry. Yep. You also had some incredible panels and very good panelists, if I do say so myself, throughout multiple panels on, I guess it was Halloween Day, wasn't it? Talk to me about some of the highlights there. What did you love hearing?
And no one showed up in a costume, but that's a good thing. Anyway, so God, there was so much. I mean, you know, we had the scan tool panel, we had the our panel, which we'll talk about in a minute. We had the collision engineering panel about the collision engineering group that is working with shops and kids. We had, I thought we had that great presentation on the technician crisis, the survey they took, which I thought was pretty interesting. You know, and then we had one of my favorites was collision repairity. If at the end, when it was sort of like a Jeopardy, it was freaking awesome. It had everybody in their seats in stitches, but it was great. Great committee presentations. I thought it was awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, again, congratulations for a great event because it was a packed house. I walked into that room Halloween morning, not entirely sure of what to expect, but it blew me away, the attendance, and had some valuable things going all day. I want to dive into our panel that you hosted and emceed and did a great job. Before I do that, though, I noticed a recurring theme throughout a fair bit of these discussions at CIC, and it had to do with the talent shortage and different ways to combat that. It was 2 or 3 where that was the core focus. And then, of course, each panel, each presentation, that was brought up in some way, shape, or form. Were there any kind of key points there that you'd highlight from a talent perspective?
And at the end of the day, I think that the thing that I take away from it is there's a couple things. Number one, the great news is there's multiple organizations trying to solve the crisis or problem, right? The other thing I think everybody talked about is this is not a short-term thing. We're not going to be able to turn a switch and we're going to have the problem solved. The third thing I think, and everybody who listens to your podcast should think about this, everybody in the industry has a responsibility to help in this. I mean, growing your own apprentices, doing whatever you can. But those are the things I took away from all those talent presentations, Colin. The other thing is, I think you're going to see a recurring, ongoing communication and vision the next 2024 on the same subject, because it's such a big deal. Such a big deal.
Not going anywhere. And yeah, to your point, a ton of people are working on this. Everyone seems to be rowing the boat in the same direction on a macro scale, but it's on us at the micro level and at the shop level to be able to fend for yourself, in essence. But you do have some heroes in the background doing some great things. Caught up with Brandon Eckenrode of CREF. Some of the information that they had from different donations and fundraising campaigns going on was fantastic. Collision Engineering, great program. So some really good things highlighted at CIC. Pivoting to a subject that I love to talk about is our consolidation panel. Set the stage for us a little bit on what the theme of that was, and then certainly any highlights you gleaned from that panel.
Well, if you remember when I first reached out to you and the rest of the panelists, what the goal was to try to really cut through all the BS per se, right? And get to really what the meat of consolidation, what's going on, who's doing the buying, who are the acquirers, what are all the details that in a lot of cases get left off of all the highlights that you read about, in the daily or weekly press, right? And so, you yourself and the other panelists, I thought, did an awesome job of really explaining to the body, look, here's the real deal, right? You did a great job. What was funny though, Cole, is sitting there moderating, number one, it was almost unanimous across everybody on the panelists that this is the best time to be in the industry. I mean, it was unanimous through all of you, right?
Yeah.
But some of the key highlights were, number one, I was surprised at the number of MSOs in the marketplace today. I mean, I think the number was over 800.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
The other thing that was brought up during that panel was the interest of private equity, of which you talked about.
Immense.
Immense interest. I mean, I was shocked at the number that came up during the panel of the PE companies in waiting per se, right?
Yes.
Just trying to figure out, how do I get into this market?
Absolutely, man. And really enjoyed the conversation. I thank you again for including me in that. We all had a great time up there and hope we conveyed a lot of value to the audience. But you're absolutely right. Private equity is enamored by the collision repair industry, and there's so many things to like about it. You have consolidation underway, but it's still very much in the early innings. You have a multiple arbitrage, which essentially means you're buying in at a higher level, but you can grow at a lower level in terms of a multiple perspective. And you have the impact that every trade-oriented industry, for the most part, is having right now, and that's that silver tsunami term I like to throw around. That's that aging ownership base. It's a perfect storm, and an industry that, as you and I have talked about, seems to have a ton of staying power here moving forward. So the stars kind of align right now for private equity interest.
Yeah, and there were some other interesting points that got brought up. For example, John brought up the fact that someone asked him, what's the first step I should take if I want to go down this path? And John's answer was cool. He's like, well, have you tried taking 3 weeks off? Right?
Yes.
To see if you can walk away from the business.
It's a great point. And I deal with this in collision and beyond. Business owners, in a lot of cases, they're working hard, and they have, in some cases, a bit of an ego about that. And they want to show everybody how hard they're working. But the truth is, there's nothing more limiting to a business's value than significant reliance on an owner. You want to be able to build that team to hand off duties and therefore be able to hand that off more smoothly to the next owner of the business.
Yeah. And also, your group, the whole panel talked about how important the management team was. I mean, that's another thing that came across from everybody, that if a PE is involved or the acquirer is involved, don't get me wrong, the business is important. But as everybody in the panel stated, It's really the management team.
That's it. When it's PE, consolidators are one thing. They want to see a future in the business, but they care about what that business looks like today, generally speaking. When it's private equity, the story is just as important, if not more important, than the current financials of that business. And at the center of that story is the management team. Why is this group the group that we're going to join with and expand? Why are they going to do it better than anyone else? And number one, management team. You're exactly right.
Yeah. So great conversations. By the way, just FYI. So if you remember, we rate every one of the presentations at CIC when they're done.
Yes. Intimidating.
Our panel got the highest ratings, by the way. Congratulations to you and the rest of the panelists. It was
you as well. You as well. Well, thank you for that. Could not have done it without our fearless moderator. That's fantastic news. That's exciting. And I'd go back. You mentioned the point of the panelists were unanimous in saying there's never been a better time to own a business in collision repair. That echoes what you and I said in our conversation, our previous conversation on the collision vision. I know I've been shouting this from the rooftops in the collision vision a little bit before that and ever since. And to see that feeling echoed by others has to feel very good for listeners of the collision vision who own their own body shops.
Correct. And Cole, also, when the panel was over, I had the opportunity, you probably did as well, to talk to a lot of shop owners that were in the room. And by the way, they feel the same way. Most of them feel that being in the business today, now while it's hard, don't get me wrong, this is not all peaches and cream, but the good ones really do believe that this is the best time in the business, to be in the business.
Absolutely. And it's only, in my opinion, for those willing to invest in scaling or specializing going to get better. I think margin profiles are going to improve. I think opportunities to add services such as calibration, such as towing, such as customization, and mainly calibration. I'd come back just given who my guest is. I think the opportunities are, just continuing to get better.
Yeah, and good for the industry, right? Good for the industry. And it's all, again, not easy business. So everybody listening, please understand, I know it's a hard business, but if you're willing to make the investment and if you're willing to put in the energy, and Cole, you said it earlier, if you've got the right team or you're building the right team, it's a great time to be in the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was concerned going in, and I said it, I think some other panelists said it as well. For the information that's about to come, free panel, don't take this as negative. We're going to talk about consolidation and how consolidation is only going to speed up. And one or two of us might even go as far as saying the window for your traditional generalist mom and pop being exceptionally successful is closing, but your options are really, really good from here. Whether you want to scale via multiple locations, whether you want to sell, or whether you want to specialize, those are all positive outcomes for business owners. So 100%. A great conversation. Thank you again for including me. Thank you for moderating a great panel. Really enjoyed that conversation. And kind of moving forward for CIC, it feels like that was just yesterday, but you have another CIC coming up right around the corner. Talk to us about what you have coming down the road a little bit. So every year, the great thing about CIC is I call them the bookends. The January meeting is always in Palm Springs. So on January 17th, for anybody who's listening, January 17th, the Hilton in Palm Springs is CIC in January. And we had a post CIC conversation with our committee chairs. And again, because we've got great committee chairs, it's going to be a great event. You're going to have more great content. You're going to see an announcement from me on something regarding ADAS and calibrations, regarding certification and standards. It's going to be a really big announcement. So stay tuned. Number one. Number two. Man. Come to the event because it's going to be a big, big announcement. You heard it here first. Yeah, that sounds. Come on now, you're dragging me out west. Let's go.
The other thing is every January we also do an HR update. So there's a lot of information about the new human resource rules, new laws around the country. We also, every January, talk about new governmental regulations. So those are some of the things you'll see at the January meeting. But then the rest of the year, we've got Seattle in April. We've got Denver in July. And then we're back at SEMA 2024 for my last meeting as chairman.
Oh, man. Well, congratulations on a job well done to this point. Look forward to hearing and seeing how the rest of the events for your tenure go. And I think on behalf of everybody, thank you for the continued hard work and effort that's going into making these events great.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor. And again, it's really about our committees. They do all the work. They really do.
Awesome. Well, zooming out a little bit, we covered CIC, I think, pretty well. And if you want to learn more and see kind of what all those panels consisted of, I know those are still up online. And with any questions, certainly on consolidation, feel free to reach out to me. Anything else, I think, Frank, you can point them in the right direction.
And if anybody wants to get the latest information about CIC, go to CIClink.com. And
fantastic.
Yep.
We'll put that in the show notes as well. A great resource there. Zooming out a little bit on SEMA 2023, kind of a post-mortem of that. How was your SEMA this year?
Great. I mean, number one, I think you saw it. I know I saw it. It was as packed as ever. I mean, going between the meetings and taxis and Ubers, I think I heard multiple times it was 150 to 160,000 people. Which, that's a lot of people looking at cars and technology, but great attendance, number one. Number two is our company did great. But what was interesting is there is now so much ADAS stuff on the floor. There was so much ADAS stuff on the floor. My only comment to everybody listening, buyer beware. I mean, there's just so much. It's almost overwhelming. I mean, I probably was at, I don't know, there's 20 to 25, 30 plus ADAS/calibration type booths. So that was big. Lots of cool technology though, and again, this is why I love going to SEMA. There's so much great creativity in the industry. I mean, you walk around, you see all this cool stuff, right? That people make up and they create and they bring it to market. I thought the SEMA garage area was pretty cool. Great place to see all the ADAS stuff. I saw a couple robots. I don't know if you had a chance to see the robots.
Yeah.
But to me, I think over the next year or two, I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Was it ProSpot? I think ProSpot. Yeah, it was ProSpot. Yes.
Yep. ProSpot had a very cool setup. And I think it goes back to something we were talking about on our previous conversation on the collision vision. A couple things, but the highlight to me and featuring the robots and everything is a decade ago, it sort of felt like the future of this industry was in question. Today at SEMA, if you look at the innovation and the investment that goes toward innovation, you can tell some very smart people, some very smart companies are very bullish in the longevity of collision repair because they're putting a ton of money into R&D in the space.
I can tell you our company is one of them. But if you walked around that floor, 100%, Cole, you could see the largest of large equipment companies are spending millions, multi-million dollars bringing new and cool solutions to the marketplace, right? So they're obviously seeing the same thing we are. It's a great time to be in the business. It's only going to grow. But the other thing, though, is it also puts pressure on the operators to say, okay, where do I spend my money?
A lot of options to spend a lot of money. No doubt. And I think that's it. And we go back to the specializing commentary. I've had some smart people on this show talk about, hey, these vehicles are getting so complex to repair. The generalist repair of the past is going to become much more challenging. Every car at this point is a bit of a different beast. Is that fair to say?
100%. I mean, if I were a younger man, that probably, and I was in the business, that's probably the path I would go down. I mean, and by the way, I think the consumer is going to like that more as well, right? I think the consumer is going to look for that expert, sort of like in the medical field, right? If I have a challenge, I go to the generalist first, but the generalist then sends me to the specialist. And by the way, people who weren't at the MSO symposium, Rex Green had something really interesting to say, that ultimately over time, he believes that there's going to be this electronic generalist pushing people to the appropriate specialist for what they're looking to have with their vehicle. But your comment about specialization, 100%. I mean, great opportunity to be, if I just want to be in the Asian world, the Euro world, the EV world, think about this opportunity. You've got all of these delivery trucks that are going to EVs. You got BrightDrop, you got Amazon, you got blah, blah, blah. Whole new opportunity segment to be in that very few people are talking about. So specialization, big opportunity.
Absolutely. I think the first person to mention specialization on the Collision Vision was Kelly Logan with Rivian. And he knows firsthand. I mean, that guy's been involved with a lot of the EV startups when they were startups, and firsthand the differences in the expertise required. And your generalist technician, for the most part, is eventually going to run out of room in their brain for all the knowledge it takes and all the different procedures to repair specialized vehicles. So I think it's a roadmap to more profitability as well. The more you specialize, I think the higher the ceiling is from a margin perspective.
Yeah, and as you specialize, by the way, you can also diversify within the specialization, right?
Yep.
So if I'm a Euro collision center, right, I can then be a Euro EV center. I can also be a Euro mechanical business. I mean, so even though we're talking about funneling into specialization, within that specialization, I can expand. So there's plenty of opportunities.
Oh, yeah. Specialization does not equal being pigeonholed, right? It's a means to a very good end, in my opinion. But very good. I guess taking one last step back on the SEMA conversation, a lot of positivity, a ton of people. If there was any question on are we back from 2020 from a SEMA show attendance perspective, that question was answered with a resounding yes. Huge crowds and buyers too. I think a lot of times vendors have a perception of SEMA being a lot of tire kickers, and I'm sure there's some fairness there, but it was a who's who this year from an attendance perspective. Was there anything that sort of, we'll call it, blew your mind this trip or changed your opinion on something at a high level that you view differently now that you saw at SEMA?
No, not really, Cole. And it's a good question. It's one of the things I do as part of my role is I'm always looking over the hill, right? And so what I can tell you, what I've seen in terms of the new investment, the new equipment, the new software out there is the technology that's going to be required to play is only going to become more and more important. So the integration of AI into software, the integration of software into your tools. I mean, it's just that to me, it validated my vision that, there's many years ago, Mark Andreessen said, software is eating the world. Well, software is now eating into our industry. And that's going to be a big part of what every piece of equipment everybody works with. So it validated what I've been looking at over the hill. So
Awesome. Well, that's good because I know based on our last conversation, a lot of what you view as the future of the industry, and it's really positive. So any validation from that perspective is a great thing. Yeah, no, again, lots of great opportunities. Again, as we've said multiple times. Awesome. Well, is there anything we did not, before we kind of get to wrapping up and the key takeaways, is there anything we didn't discuss about SEMA 2023 or CIC out in Vegas that we should hit before we part ways today? Cole, I think we've hit all the highlights. I just want to wrap up with a couple of things. Number one, I think SEMA and CIC proved that our industry is very healthy. I mean, and plus, our panel discussion about the PE companies wanting to be involved. So we're in a very, very healthy industry, no matter what people say. I think, again, second of all, repeat, there's lots of stuff out there for you to look at, but buyer beware.
And then third, I mean, and for those of us who go, well, for those of you who are listening, don't go. If you're in the business, you need to go to SEMA. You really need to find a time in your schedule, because if you're in the business, that's the place for you to learn, for you to get excited about what the future looks like, and to figure out what you're going to do in terms of what you're going to invest in for your business. And by the way, I don't work for SEMA.
Well put. And I'd echo that. I think in addition to all the great things that you see out at SEMA, the new technologies, the general air of positivity around the industry, I mentioned it earlier, but it's very true. There's not another time in the year where essentially everybody from the industry is together in one place. It's a big place, but everyone's together in one place. And it's a very, very valuable, compact week that, even though you're in Vegas and it's dry and it kills me every time, the week flies by, and it's really a valuable time.
Yeah. So on that point, great networking, great place to learn from your peers, great place to ask all the questions that you're looking for answers to ask multiple people. So yeah, great. It was great. I loved it. The dryness is a little tough on the noses.
Oh, every time. Every
single time.
I ended up actually.
For
go ahead.
Listening, bring your chapstick when you go.
I was there for a relatively abridged SEMA. I did a Sunday night through Thursday morning. I had a wedding to get to.
Oh, wow.
From someone outside the industry who doesn't know that that's very much against the rules during SEMA week. But I thought, hey, short trip. I think I can make it through without investing in a humidifier. Turns out I was very wrong. As I was up, just struggling my second to last night, had to go downstairs, get one in the middle of the night just to make it through. But
I was looking through my expenses, right? And talk about the bottle of water. I mean, literally, I must have gone through 20, 25 bottles of water. But you need to drink. You need to drink the water.
I'm right there with you. All that aside, go to SEMA. Don't let that deter you.
Yes.
Very good. Well, Frank, I think we hit your 3 key takeaways there, and all really good. I'm assuming that's correct. Anything else you want to add from a key takeaway perspective?
No, but I want to again thank you, Cole, for participating in the panel. Thank you for doing this and invite me back. And you do a great job, by the way. Great work.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for everything you're doing with CIC and beyond. And again, likewise, thank you for putting that panel on. Where can people follow along with you or reach out if they have any questions for you?
Best place to reach me is on LinkedIn. Just look at Frank Terlep on LinkedIn. Best place to get information about what we're up to. Or you can reach me at frank.terlep at opusivs.com.
Fantastic.
Terlep, Terlep at opusivs.com.
And I will throw that in the show notes as well. Well, Frank Terlep, thank you. A pleasure as always, sir. Appreciate you coming back here and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Cole, thanks so much, man. By the way, we're recording this before Thanksgiving. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks again to Frank Terlep for joining us today here on the Collision Vision. When the Auto Body News team and I got together to talk about kind of a SEMA wrap-up show, Frank's name was the first one to come to mind, and he did not disappoint. Before we wrap up, I wanted to reiterate Frank's 3 key takeaways, and those were, number 1, the collision industry is as healthy as ever. Smart people are bullish on the collision industry, and the R&D coming into collision repair technology is a testament to that. Exciting times ahead for collision repair, ADAS, and beyond. Number 2, and very much to that point, buyer beware. There's lots of investment opportunity for your shop. Make sure to do your own due diligence and prioritize your needs. With all the offerings out there, it's easy to feel like a kid in a candy shop. Be cognizant of that. And lastly, go to SEMA. It's really the only time of year where so much of the industry is together in one place. The energy is crazy. You can meet people that are going to change you and your business. You can catch up with old friends. You can see some crazy new technologies and see some really, really cool cars. Don't miss it in 2024. That's all for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please do be sure to subscribe and share to the Collision Vision wherever you get your podcast. And as always, on behalf of the Auto Body News team and myself, thank you for coming along for the ride.